What if I told you that a tiny invention worn on your wrist has decided battles, saved lives, and even changed the course of history? From chasing shadows to crafting Swiss dreams, the true story of the wristwatch will leave you stunned. Thousands of years ago, humans gazed at the sky, using the sun's shadow to measure time. Ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and Babylonians crafted sundials and water clocks, marvels of their era. But deep down, people craved something more personal, something they could carry anywhere. Fast forward to today, a single wristwatch can cost millions, symbolizing status, precision, and legacy. But how did we get here? What secrets, battles, and dreams shaped the journey from sun chasing to Swiss luxury? Let's uncover the breathtaking evolution of the wristwatch. Back in the 16th century, timekeeping took its first portable step. The invention of the pocket watch was seen as a miracle, a tiny machine you could carry with you. Nobles and royalty quickly embraced this innovation, flaunting ornate timepieces as a symbol of wealth and sophistication. But these watches were far from perfect, often inaccurate, delicate, and bulky. Yet, they represented something new, the idea that time could belong to the individual. As centuries passed, pocket watches became more refined. By the 17th and 18th centuries, they weren't just fashion statements. They became crucial for navigation, especially at sea. Accurate timekeeping meant the difference between reaching a destination or vanishing into the unknown. It's no exaggeration to say that empires rose and fell based on a pocket watch's ticking heart, but something was still missing. Carrying a pocket watch wasn't always practical. Imagine a soldier on a battlefield, or a ship captain wrestling with a storm. Pulling out a delicate pocket watch was not just inconvenient, it was dangerous. In moments when seconds mattered, there had to be a better way. And then, a quiet revolution began. In the late 19th century, it was the military who first dared to think differently. Soldiers needed immediate access to time during critical operations. So, they began modifying pocket watches, strapping them to their wrists with crude leather bands. These early wristwatches weren't fashion statements, they were tools of survival. One famous story often cited is that of the Anglo-Boer War, 1899 to 1902, where British soldiers found wristwatches essential for coordinating attacks. Commanders realized that synchronized movements could decide the fate of entire armies. Wristwatches became secret weapons, ticking silently against the backdrop of history. Curious, isn't it? How something born out of pure necessity later became a global symbol of elegance and prestige. By the early 20th century, wristwatches started creeping into civilian life too. In 1904, famed Brazilian aviator Alberto Santos Dumont, frustrated by how difficult it was to check a pocket watch mid-flight, asked his friend, the legendary jeweler Louis Cartier, to create a timepiece he could wear on his wrist. The result? The Cartier Santos, one of the first wristwatches designed not for the battlefield, but for daily life. Suddenly, the wristwatch wasn't just practical, it was stylish. From soldiers on the front lines to daring pilots in the sky, the wristwatch evolved from a rugged necessity to an elegant accessory, and the world would never look at time the same way again. But the journey was only beginning. What massive event would soon make wristwatches explode in popularity across the entire globe? Let's find out. The wristwatch's true moment of destiny arrived with the outbreak of World War I. The battlefield was a place of chaos, smoke, and split-second decisions. Soldiers no longer had the luxury to fumble around for a pocket watch deep in their coats. Time wasn't just a tool anymore, it became a weapon of survival. Military strategists quickly realized that coordinated attacks needed perfect timing. Imagine thousands of men charging into gunfire. One wrong second could cost hundreds of lives. Wristwatches became mandatory, and soon, trench watches were born. These early trench watches were rugged, functional, and very different from delicate civilian timepieces. They had luminous hands that glowed in the dark trenches, shrapnel guards to protect the glass, and large, easy-to-read dials. Soldiers strapped them tightly to their wrists, often customizing them with heavy leather or metal mesh bands. It wasn't about fashion, it was about life and death. And here's the twist no one saw coming. When soldiers returned home, they kept wearing their wristwatches. Suddenly, wristwatches weren't just military gear, they became symbols of bravery, masculinity, and adventure. Society's view shifted overnight. Before the war, wristwatches were seen as feminine, something ladies might wear for style. But after the war, real men wore wristwatches. Heroes wore wristwatches. Curious how quickly the world adapted. By the 1920s, major watchmakers like Rolex, Omega, and Longines jumped in with both feet, crafting timepieces specifically for men, emphasizing durability, precision, and prestige. Meanwhile, World War II only supercharged this transformation. Nations realized wristwatches were critical military equipment. Pilots needed watches with large luminous dials for night missions. Naval officers required water-resistant designs for submarines. Even paratroopers had specialized watches designed to endure brutal drops from the sky. It wasn't just soldiers who wore them. Wristwatches became essential tools for leaders like Winston Churchill, Dwight Eisenhower, and General Douglas MacArthur. They didn't just check the time, they made history by it. One fascinating fact? During World War II, the U.S. military commissioned thousands of rugged, standardized wristwatches under the famous A11 specification. These watches were so reliable they earned the nickname, "the watch that won the war." By the time the dust settled after World War II, one thing was crystal clear. The wristwatch wasn't just a tool anymore. It was part of human identity. It told the world who you were, what you had faced, and what you had conquered. But the wristwatch's transformation wasn't over yet. What if I told you the real explosion, the rise of wristwatches as luxury symbols, was still waiting just around the corner? Get ready for a twist you won't see coming. The world had seen the wristwatch evolve from a military necessity to a symbol of rugged masculinity. But by the mid-20th century, something extraordinary was brewing in the heart of Switzerland. Switzerland, the land of snow-capped mountains and tranquil lakes, was about to redefine time itself. What started as a small innovation in precision and craftsmanship would soon elevate the wristwatch to the height of luxury, turning it into an object of desire coveted by kings, celebrities, and billionaires. In the 1950s and 1960s, Swiss watchmakers such as Rolex, Patek Philippe, and Audemars Piguet began to create timepieces that were far more than instruments for telling time. They were works of art, masterpieces crafted from the finest materials, designed with stunning accuracy, and polished to perfection. These watches became the epitome of sophistication, symbolizing a life well lived, success, and exclusivity. But it wasn't just about luxury, it was about innovation. The Swiss weren't content to rest on their laurels. Every decade brought new breakthroughs. In 1969, the Omega Speedmaster became the first watch worn on the moon, cementing Switzerland's reputation as the home of the finest timepieces in the world. This golden era of Swiss watchmaking also saw the rise of a new class of watch enthusiasts, people who weren't just buying watches, but collecting them. Timepieces became investments, passed down through generations, and sometimes even auctioned for millions of dollars. The idea of wearing a watch that told a story, not just of time, but of history, craftsmanship, and legacy, began to captivate the world. By the 1970s, Swiss watches were not only a luxury item, but also a status symbol. To own a Swiss watch was to say, "I've arrived." From the corporate executive to the Hollywood star, wristwatches became an essential part of an elite lifestyle. However, this golden age didn't just happen by chance. It was the culmination of Swiss watchmaking's commitment to precision, style, and innovation. These companies began to blend artistry with technology, merging mechanical movements with beautiful designs. They weren't just making watches, they were crafting symbols of human achievement and cultural pride. Yet, as the Swiss watch industry basked in its glory, a challenge was rising from the East, the Quartz Crisis of the 1970s. A new breed of watches, powered by quartz technology, threatened to wipe out the mechanical Swiss movement forever. Would the Swiss watchmakers be able to adapt to this new threat, or would they lose their crown as the leaders in luxury timepieces? But that's a story for later. For now, let's appreciate the breathtaking beauty and legacy of Swiss luxury watches. how they rose from humble beginnings to redefine not just time, but the very idea of success. The 1970s marked a pivotal turning point for the wristwatch. The Swiss, once untouchable in their craftsmanship, were about to face an innovation so radical, it would shake the very foundations of their empire. Enter the Quartz Crisis. In 1969, the Japanese company Seiko unleashed the first-ever quartz wristwatch, revolutionizing the world of timekeeping. Unlike traditional mechanical watches that relied on intricate gears and springs, the quartz movement was powered by a tiny quartz crystal that vibrated at a constant frequency when an electric current passed through it. This made quartz watches far more accurate, durable, and, crucially, affordable. Swiss watchmakers, who had built their empires on centuries of mechanical precision, were blindsided. While they were still perfecting their timepieces with luxury in mind, the quartz revolution disrupted everything. Suddenly, anyone could own a highly accurate wristwatch, and it didn't cost a fortune. The Swiss watch industry, which had prided itself on its craftsmanship, was forced to face the harsh reality. Innovation wasn't just about luxury anymore. It was about functionality and affordability. The Japanese watchmaking giant Seiko dominated the market, selling millions of quartz watches. The Swiss, slow to react, found themselves losing market share as quartz watches flooded the global market like a tidal wave. The once untouchable giants of the Swiss watch industry were facing a crisis of identity and survival. How could they keep their legacy intact while competing against the efficient, cost-effective nature of quartz? For years, the Swiss were in denial, sticking to what they knew best, traditional mechanical watches. But a handful of visionary Swiss brands, like Rolex, Patek Philippe, and Swatch, didn't give up. Instead, they redefined innovation. While many traditional brands struggled to adapt, Swatch emerged as a game-changer in the 1980s. They blended Swiss luxury with affordable quartz technology, creating a new market for fun, colorful, and stylish wristwatches that appealed to the masses. Swatch brought the Swiss back into the game with creativity, offering people a chance to wear a Swiss-made watch without breaking the bank. Yet, just when the Swiss thought they had regained their foothold, another disruption was on the horizon: the smartwatch. The 21st century brought us an entirely new kind of timepiece: the smartwatch. With the launch of the Apple Watch in 2015, wristwatches once again evolved into a symbol of modern innovation. Smartwatches were more than just timekeepers. They were mini-computers on your wrist, packed with health monitoring features, GPS, messages, and even payment options. Suddenly, your wristwatch wasn't just telling time, it was connecting you to your entire digital world. In a blink of an eye, the wristwatch was no longer just about luxury, precision, or even quartz accuracy. It was about functionality and how it could integrate into every aspect of your life. Smartwatches became a symbol of the future: fast, connected, and ever-changing. But here's the burning question. With all this innovation, will the traditional wristwatch ever be relevant again? Is the legacy of Swiss luxury about to fade into history? Or is there room for both the old and the new? Today, wristwatches are more than just tools for telling time. They are symbols of memory, achievement, and legacy. Think about it. Have you ever received a watch as a gift, maybe from a loved one, or as a reward for a personal milestone? The moment the watch touches your wrist, it doesn't just mark the time, it marks a chapter in your life. The true emotional power of a wristwatch lies in its ability to connect you to the moments that shape who you are. Look at any luxury watch brand today: Rolex, Omega, Patek Philippe, or even the iconic Swatch. What do they all have in common? They don't just sell watches, they sell stories. Each timepiece is a narrative, a journey crafted into metal, leather, and sapphire. Every watch tells a tale: a story of success, a story of a hard-won victory, or perhaps a reminder of a moment lost in time. The luxury watch industry, once solely focused on precision and functionality, has learned to intertwine these elements with the emotions people attach to their timepieces. It's no longer just about what time it is, but about how the watch makes you feel. For example, the iconic Rolex Submariner isn't just known for being a durable dive watch. It has come to symbolize a sense of adventure and exploration. If you wear one, you're not just wearing a watch, you're embodying a spirit of daring and discovery. Then there's Patek Philippe, whose tagline, "You never actually own a Patek Philippe. You merely look after it for the next generation," speaks volumes about the emotional legacy these watches carry. It's not just time, it's history passed down like a precious heirloom. It's in these personal connections to watches that we find the true value. A gift from a partner, a watch you bought to celebrate a life-changing event, or perhaps a timepiece inherited from a family member. It becomes part of your identity. It connects you to the past and reminds you of the steps you've taken to get where you are. But beyond luxury, wristwatches have evolved into timeless symbols of empowerment. Take the rise of smartwatches. For all their high-tech features, smartwatches have managed to retain an emotional power of their own. They represent the future, an intersection of innovation and functionality, all wrapped around your wrist. The digital age may have changed the way we see time, but the emotional impact of a wristwatch endures. Even in the hustle and bustle of modern life, when we look at our watches, we don't just see the time, we see who we are. Whether it's a smartwatch that keeps us connected, a luxury piece that reflects our success, or a sentimental heirloom that carries generations of memories, wristwatches carry with them an undeniable emotional weight. Here's the question to ponder. Can a watch ever really be just a tool for telling time again? Or has it forever become a symbol of our emotions, aspirations, and identities? Time has evolved, but the emotional power of the wristwatch remains as strong as ever. Whether you wear a sleek smartwatch or a classic Swiss luxury timepiece, you are wearing more than just an accessory. You are wearing a piece of history, a symbol of who you are, and a reminder of where you've been and where you're going. As we take a step back and look at the evolution of the wristwatch, it becomes clear that this small piece of craftsmanship holds far more than just time. It carries the weight of history, the dreams of innovators, and the emotions of those who wear it. From the humble beginnings of the sundial to the sleek smartwatches that now power our digital lives, the wristwatch has been with us every step of the way. But the story doesn't end here. The world of wristwatches is constantly evolving, pushing the boundaries of luxury, technology, and meaning. What will the future hold for this iconic accessory? Will traditional craftsmanship merge with cutting-edge tech to create the perfect fusion? How will watches continue to impact our identities, our memories, and our lives in the years to come? The wristwatch is more than just a timepiece. It's a symbol of who we are and where we've been. And as time marches on, one thing is certain. The legacy of the wristwatch will continue to tick, shaping our past, present, and future. Want more fascinating stories about the evolution of everyday objects? Don't forget to leave your thoughts and questions in the comments. What does your wristwatch mean to you? Let's continue this journey together.